Hi, and welcome to Moonlit Journal. Today I want to talk about my 2024 journals and planners. This is my first ever YouTube video, so I apologize if there are any issues with the sound or the lighting. I hope to improve upon those things as I put out more videos over time. So in 2024, I kind of considered it my year of experimentation with journaling. I had previously used a Hobonichi Cousin in 2023, and so I wanted to see what else was out there, what would work for me, and just try a couple of different things in 2024. And so what I ended up choosing at the start of 2024 was a Hobonichi A6 Day Free and a B6 Compact Full Year Common Planner from Sterling Ink. So the Day Free I used as my journal and commonplace and kind of like a memory keeper. And the Sterling Ink was my work planner primarily, but I also kept all of my health tracking in here as well. So it was a planner tracker combo. The way that I used my Day Free, well, first of all, I had it in this beautiful Have a Nice Day cover, also sold by Hobonichi, and it's in this beautiful kind of grayish blue color that I absolutely love. Usually I stick to dark colors and usually black, blacks and grays, but something about this color just really spoke to me. I loved it. It kind of looks like a cloudy gray sky. So I absolutely love that. And the quality of this cover is fantastic as well. It's super smooth and soft and pliable. And it lays flat, which is really important to me as I'm journaling. And so, like I said, this was my memory keeper. At the start, you have this page with the full year, the previous year, and the following year. I don't ever really use this page. I know a lot of people use it for like tracking paydays or PTO, personal time off, but I have never really found a use for this, and I don't think I need it, so I just usually skip past this one. I'm covering this because it has some private information, but this is the tracker page, or I guess the index. I used it differently every month. So going back to the idea of experimentation, I wanted to understand, like, what is it that I really want to track on a monthly basis? And so I tried in January, I tried tracking my mood every day. In February, I tried tracking what I was grateful for each day. And then March, I was tracking my health, which got really depressing after a point, so I stopped doing that. And of all of these three, I would say the gratitude tracker was my favorite and something that I might want to carry forward in 2025. I really loved kind of being more intentional about what I'm grateful for in my life and taking that, couple of seconds every day to really think about it and write it down and kind of memorialize it in a way. So this was a practice that really helped me. Next we have, let me just go into the monthly pages. So then we have the monthly, which again holds a lot of private information for me when I was using this. So I'm just flipping to a blank page here, but essentially how I used this was to track any appointments, events, any invites that I had, milestones, days off. I would also occasionally write like when I started a new book and ended the book, or movies that I watched. It really was a catch-all for anything that I wanted to remember from the month. I also had my reading and watching down here at the bottom. And actually, for when I was in this book, I I decorated all of the margins with kind of dark cloudy pictures as well, because this space just seems too narrow to me to really utilize it. So I thought I would just cover it and make it look pretty instead. So that's the monthly section. And that's really what I loved about the day free, is that there were fewer pages in the back. It's not like one page per day for the full year. It's only 170 pages in the back. So I found that much more feasible and manageable for me, because I'm not someone who at the time was journaling every single day. But I liked that they were still all of the months dated, because I do still want to track events and appointments every single month. So I liked that the first part of the book was dated and that the second part is not. And let me show you what I mean. So this is going into the daily pages, which starts right after the months. And it's just a blank page. There's no date at the top. There's a quote at the bottom of every page. And I like getting the Japanese version always, because I find the English text at the bottom kind of distracting, and that it kind of takes away from what I'm writing about. And I find Japanese to be a very beautiful language. So I like that it kind of adds some element to the page. So in the daily section, I used this as a way to document my memories, my introspections, any articles that I wanted to save, anything I wanted to reference. It was like a journal and commonplace combined for me. And I had this key here with the different categories. So we had copy text, health-related entries, visuals, ideas that I wanted to save, just my journal entries, and any creative entries as well. And to kind of show an example of how I used this, here's a good example. So this was 13 beautiful words with no English translation. So discovered a couple of words that I found really beautiful that were not translatable in English. And so I looked up an article that had several different words across multiple languages falling into that same theme. And I just documented that. And I found myself actually referencing this entry quite a lot. And so this was tagged as copy text. I like to always try to add like a visual element to the page as well, something that captures the mood or how I was feeling when I was writing this, or captures kind of the essence of what I'm documenting. Here's another example. This was a visual entry and journal entry combined. So this was a painting that I saw at a museum that I just wanted to reflect on and write about why it resonated with me so much. Here's a book that I read that I really loved. So this was more of a book review. And then here under copy text, I had quotes from that same book that I wanted to save and that really moved me. So again, adding visual elements on all of the pages, just small things, nothing to make it look super aesthetic or designed. I definitely didn't want it to add pressure to myself to make, really well-produced journal entries or anything like that. But I find that especially when I'm looking back on my journals, it's really helpful to have visuals on the page that almost jog my memory and take me back into the mindset I was in when I was first writing. So, for example, when I look at this picture of the mountains here, I immediately am taken back to how I felt when I was reading this book, and it just immediately brings me back into those same feelings. And it's a great way to memory keep for me because it kind of transports me back into the mindset I was in. So that's really why I add visuals to my entries, or I try to. Oftentimes I'll I'll have so much that I need to get out immediately that I just write, and it's just pure text. And that's completely fine with me too. I don't really have I'm not very particular, I guess, about how I journal. I just want it to be a space where I'm able to express myself and work out all of the thoughts in my head and find some sort of closure. So that's how I was using the A6 Day Free, and I absolutely loved it. I had so much fun using this. I only used it from January to March though, and I will get into why in just a little bit. For my Sterling Ink B6, like I said, I used this as my work planner and health tracker. And I got it in this really dark, super dark green color, which I thought was gorgeous. And this is a gorgeous planner, honestly. It's designed really well, and that's why I was so enticed by it. But interestingly, what I found when I was in here was that I didn't feel inspired to use it. There's something about this planner that can come across a bit sterile and a bit, I don't know, lacking in personality, I guess. Hobonichi has it has a charm to it. It has a personality, and it feels like a living, breathing thing. I don't know if that sounds weird, but something about Sterling Ink didn't feel that way to me. It just felt too clinical. I didn't feel inspired to use it very much, sadly. And so you'll actually see a lot of the pages in here are completely blank. I didn't enjoy using this, and I can't quite pinpoint why or what it is about this planner. I think it has a lot to do with how subtle the design is and how clean and lightweight it is. And I like that the Hobonichi layouts have a bit more boldness to them. The lines are a bit more bold. There's some subtle colors. There's, the text at the bottom. Even just the fonts are so small in here, and there's something about how subtle it is that made my writing in it look quite jarring to me, and that really put me off for some reason. And really, these are things that you only learn as you experiment, right? I couldn't have known that until I bought this book and used it and felt it in my hands and used my pen in it. And that's where I found there's these little eccentricities with all of our books that just either make it click or not. And for some reason, this book just didn't click for me. I just can't get into it. I found my writing to stand out too much against this very subtle layout. So I didn't like that. I still did use it for the first 3 months alongside this. And the way I used it was, unfortunately, again, the information is private in my weekly views because it has all of my work information, but I just created a checklist every day of each of my work tasks, and I would check off once I'd complete them. And I would just have this open, laying flat next to me during my work day so I could keep adding to it and checking things off. And in that sense, it was extremely functional. It did really help me. And I tend to work with vertical planning much better than horizontal. I think vertical just makes a lot more sense for my brain because I just create a long list of to-do items each day. And I like being able to see it across a full week of what I was able to accomplish and not, and what had to be moved over several days. So this layout works really well for me. It's just something about the Sterling Ink design that did not gel with me for whatever reason. And that's not to say I don't recommend it. I think it's a beautiful planner, but yeah, just didn't work for me. And so by March, that is when I moved into my next I guess, experiment, which was the Filofax. So I got a Filofax personal size. I purchased the Filofax Wholeborn, and I thought that planner was just gorgeous. I really loved it. I loved the way that it looked. But there were a couple issues that I had with it, which is why it is no longer here. I actually have recently sold it and rehomed it, so that's great, but I don't have it here to show you what it looked like. I do have some of the previous entries that I used in it, however, so I will bring that over. This is the Megan Rhiannon, or Petite Gloom. Her inserts that she actually designed for Filofax. So I purchased this from her shop, and I used the Filofax for another 3 months. So I used it from, I think, mid-March to the end of May or mid-May. So it might have just been 2 months. And I loved it. The reason I moved into it was because, one, I was finding it difficult to be working in 2 separate books, and I didn't quite like that. I also just really didn't enjoy using the sterling ink, like I said, so I wanted a way to move back into one space and move out of this journal. And I also, in the spirit of experimentation, I wanted to create more customizable views for myself and different lists and dashboards that aren't built into these planners, but that are more specific to my needs. So I loved the customizability aspect of the Filofax. I loved the fact that I could change the ordering of the pages or add in whatever insert I wanted or create any artwork that I wanted and just punch it and put it in. I really was yearning for that type of personalization and the tactility of it as well. And this was around the same time when a lot of YouTubers in the journaling space were also moving into Filofaxes, namely Megan Rhiannon. She is, a channel that I watch religiously, and I'm often influenced by her. And I just absolutely loved how she was working with Filofax and using her ring system. And I felt like, it's something that would really benefit me as well, to have that level of customizability and to really create a space that felt like home and very unique to me. And so that's why I moved into the Filofax. Here are just some example. I liked that I could, do something like this, where every month for my monthly calendar, I would create a new kind of dashboard and personalize it to my mood that month. I had basically a monthly section, I had a weekly section, and then I had my commonplace and journal section. And this is where, again, a lot of that personalization comes in, where I was able to format it the way that made sense to me. I had like the article on the right side and my notes on the left side. And in here, I could go in and draw whatever I wanted, add in images that I liked, just really make it my own. And I had a lot of fun with that. I used Procreate to design, I guess, add designs to these pages. I had my reading reviews, which was a lot of fun to keep up with. I had film and TV reviews. So I just had fun in this. But something that you may have noticed is that for all of these pages, it's all typed out. I couldn't handwrite with the Filofax, and that was a huge reason why I moved out of it. I don't have a printer at home, and so for all of my inserts, I had to print them out at FedEx, and because of that, I couldn't choose what paper I was printing them on. It's just regular standard printer paper that they use at FedEx, and I found that none of my pens worked well on regular paper because I was so used to using Tomoe River paper in the Hobonichi that it didn't even occur to me that I would have to find a new way of writing on regular paper. and that I might not like that. And surprise, I didn't like it. So I switched completely to typing out everything in my journal. But the issue with that is that it created that gap between when I was inspired to write something and express something to when I would actually be able to print it out and put it in my journal and interact with it. It wasn't as seamless as feeling something through the day and just opening up my journal and directly writing in it and being able to empty out all of my thoughts. It was a much more involved process in Filofax where I had to then open up my iPad and open Procreate and type everything out and format it properly, and then find time to go to FedEx, print it out, cut the page, glue it together, hole punch it, and then put it in my journal. And that entire process just created so much friction that I found myself not writing as much and not reaching for my iPad to constantly type out every little thought. And it just got really complicated because I couldn't add, small entries here and there and have things be different sizes. And I had to always consider, how would I fill out the rest of the page before I print it? So there was just, it's interesting because I got into the Filofax for the flexibility and the customizability of it. But what actually ended up happening was that this format was too rigid and too structured for me to freely write in it. And so I ended up not being able to use this for very long, and I only stayed in it for 2 months. And it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I got to experiment in those 2 months with this system. But I quickly knew that rings just were not for me. And I missed the feeling of a bound book. I missed the feeling of Tomoe River paper. That's really why I left Filofax. And when thinking about what I wanted to move into, I knew I didn't want to move back into these 2 books, mainly because I didn't want to go back into the sterling ink. And unfortunately, there was no way for me to plan in the day free because there are no views that are kind of conducive to that in this book. So what I ended up doing was moving back into a cousin. And I say back into because 2023, I used a Hobonichi Cousin that whole year. And so I eventually moved back into a cousin in 2024 and I got a spring start. I have it in this Moterm cover, which I really love. It's really, I don't know, it's nice and padded and squishy and it feels nice. And I love that it lays flat when I write. And yeah, it's just a beautiful cover. And like I said, I love anything black, so it really fit my aesthetic as well. And so moving back into the cousin really felt like I was coming home. It felt wonderful. I immediately took to it and I felt a sense of planner peace again once I was back in here. So I came back in here in May of 2024 and I've been in here since then. So from May to now, end of November, it's been over 6 months and I intend to use it for the rest of the year. So just starting with this calendar page again, I don't use this page at all. But the monthly trackers in here, because I have more space, I use it for tracking my pain levels each day for my headaches. I get chronic migraines, so this is really helpful for me to see at an overall level what are the patterns in my migraine levels so that I can really have this information on hand for doctor's appointments. Then the monthly section, I'm just flipping to a blank month here. This is where I use it very similarly to how I was using my day free monthly. I just track appointments, events, milestones, days off, birthdays, just anything that I need to remember and plan kind of ahead of time. And on the left panel, I use this as like a tracker, a habit tracker or health tracker for me. So this is also very helpful for me to reference. And then at the bottom, I usually track what I'm reading and what I'm watching that month. Then we have the weekly pages in here. Having a vertical view of the week is so helpful for me, and I'm just able to add, running to-do lists every single day and have this open while I'm working to add in items as the day goes on. And on the left panel here, I write my weekly to-dos that are not related to work, but more like housekeeping things. And then we have the daily pages in here. Here is my key for my daily pages. So I have journaling entries, commonplace entries, and special interest entries. And this is just a cute little artwork I got from an Etsy seller that I love. But here's kind of an example of how I use this section. So I don't refer to the dates here whatsoever. You can see here I wrote this on May 16th, not April 1st. So I usually just add the date at the start of my entry instead. And very similar to my A6, I just have a mix of journaling and collaging or visuals with text. And I like to kind of have that because, like I said, it evokes those feelings again and it helps me remember what I was writing about. So here are just some examples. I'm often writing about what I'm interested in at the time rather than purely memory keeping. And that's why so much of this journal ends up going blank for me, because I don't use it on a daily basis. I only go in here when I have something that I want to get out or something that I want to document, something I'm interested in, that I can kind of expand upon. So yeah, this is kind of how I typically use my journal. And I'm looking to kind of change that in 2025 and incorporate more memory keeping in the truest sense, and start like daily journaling, because something that I find isn't working well for me with my current approach is I'm not really remembering what I did. And my memory really, I've been struggling with my memory because I do get chronic migraines, and I think that affects my cognition a bit and my memory. And so I really want to start doing daily pages, but for this year, I'm going to continue with how I'm using this journal and just writing whenever I feel like it, writing the things that I'm interested in, and honestly treating it like a space of joy and comfort for me. And I find that this practice it's really soothing for me. It really brings me a lot of comfort. It really helps for me to find meaning in each day and in the small things that I like and that interest me. And, being able to document that has been so beneficial for my mental health. And so I'm really thankful to Hobonichi in general, because there's something about the way these books are designed that make me want to use them and that feel like home. And I find myself always coming back to Hobonichi at the end of the day. And so that'll definitely be part of my 2025 system, and I'll go into that in a video in the future. But this is how I'm using my journal right now. A lot of my entries are quite visual, but I also have a lot of entries in here that are just text. And it's just me kind of brain dumping in my journal. And that's equally beneficial to me because it provides that relief and that feeling of closure. And when I'm able to articulate how I'm feeling, then it helps me make sense of my feelings and kind of release them, which I'm sure a lot of you who are watching probably feel the same way about your journals. So that's how I'm using the Cousin now, and I intend to stay in it till the end of the year. But I do want to move into a new system on January 1st. So more to come on that. But thank you so much for listening and for being here. And I hope that you continue to stay on the Moonlit Journal channel and that you come back as I upload more videos, because I really hope to create a space here where I can just talk about journals and planners and stationery and find like-minded people and kind of create a community of people who share these same loves. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.